Hello everyone, it's Silver. This is Caravan SandWitch. So this is a small, cute little game brought to us by a company called Plain Toast, and it is extremely French. But the idea is you play someone named Suge, I believe is how you pronounce it, Suge. And according to my extremely limited French, that means sage. And I'm not sure if it means sage as in like the herb or as in like the Final Fantasy class, but given how several of the other characters' names are sort of food puns, I'm guessing it probably means the herb. And this is a sort of exploration-y scavenger hunt kind of game. It's a little bit hard to categorize because it's got several elements of some other things, but it's also very simple mechanically. There's not a lot to it, and it's mostly about exploration and some very minor puzzle solving. But when I say minor, I mean really minor puzzle solving. Like, the puzzles in this game are not gonna make your brain sizzle or anything. They're very simple, and it's mostly about the story and the exploration. So you are on this planet that has been depleted by a mega corporation, and it has this sort of enormous magnetic radioactive storm on the surface that is causing them to have to leave. And the idea is when they left, they sort of jammed the entire surface of the planet, or what small pockets of civilization are on the surface of this planet since it's been heavily depleted, and then just sort of left and sort of buried their secrets along with everything else. And you receive a distress signal from your long-lost sister, who's been missing for several years at this point, and she says that she's somewhere on the surface of the planet. So you come down and sort of get embroiled in what's currently going on. Because the planet is so heavily depleted, there's only really this main small encampment of people, and they're all just sort of trying to survive. And as one of the only people who knows how to fix machinery and things, it's kind of up to you and a friend to sort of fix everyone's problems, as well as try and figure out what happened to your sister and what's actually going on here on the surface of this planet that this corporation wanted to cover up. So the main gameplay loop here is to climb in your van. I really like the way the van looks. It's kind of like a mix between a more traditional like Euro van and like a rover, like a Mars rover kind of appearance. It's a pretty cool looking vehicle. It's not particularly fast, although the entire pace of this game is quite slow in general, so that matches. And you go in your van and solve people's problems, mostly by exploring around the place, finding various ruins from the corporation that used to be here, stripping components out of various things and bringing them back to the town in order to help solve people's problems. And the game is split into chapters, and at the beginning of each chapter you'll be given a bunch of extra side quests. These you don't have to do, but they are very much worth doing. One, because they reward you with more components, which you'll need eventually to progress the main quest line, but also because they give you a lot of character development for all the other characters aside from yourself, and even a little bit to yourself as well. Most of the side quests have a little clock icon next to them that tells you that basically by the end of this chapter this will not be available anymore. So a lot of the side quests in this game are time limited, but the game gives you very good cues as to when this limit's going to expire. So like, for one, it just tells you in general which ones are time limited, which is very nice, but also when you're right about to do the next big story thing that is going to cause those to expire and give you the next batch of them, it'll warn you in advance and let you choose, okay, wait, go back, or okay, let's continue. So the game is very clear about making sure you don't miss anything you don't want to. I should probably mention the audiovisual presentation here before we go any further, because it's quite a nice looking game in my opinion. It's got this relatively desaturated color palette for most of the world, except for a few specific colors that are much brighter and stand out. Mostly teal and yellow, which you'll probably notice immediately in the background. A lot of things are those colors. You've also got a fair number of reds and purples, mostly because of the components that you're searching for glow those colors, but I would say that teals and yellows are the most obvious colors in this game world and stand out the most. But it's got this nice sort of stylized, softly shaded look to it that is just really nice in my opinion, and I enjoy exploring ruins and stuff in pretty much any game, but when the ruins look like this, they have this sort of forlorn, old-world, brutalist architecture vibe. That's pretty cool. But one thing I was really impressed with right from the beginning is the animation quality. The animations for your main character's movement and exploration and stuff, it just looks good. They're very smooth and pretty detailed animations with a lot of frames to them, so they have this kind of smooth, not quite rotoscoped look, but they're in a similar vein to just being, you know, an indie attempt at these really smooth animations, which when it comes to really detailed animations without the budget to do motion capture and stuff like that, it takes a long time and just a lot of effort in general to make nice, smooth-looking animations. So they always stand out to me in indie games because of how that had to have been someone's baby, right? Like when someone was developing this, making the animations for the main characters had to be like their primary job because they're quite good. Also, the game's soundtrack is quite good. It's mostly by an actual established group called Antinomy, and they are like a French music group. And I'm not going to play any of it at full volume for you because they're an established group. I'm guessing it's probably copyrighted. I don't want to risk it. But it's really pleasant music, and it's also got a fair amount of variety to it despite being a singular group. So you've got a lot of tracks that are sort of jazzy, not like lounge jazz upbeat, more like a sort of chill, laid-back jazz that's slower. But there's also some songs with more electronic elements and some things like that, and some songs that have these very beautiful, sort of haunting vocals to them. It's all really nice and meshes very well with the world and the exploration of the game because everything is sort of forlorn and lost and almost post-apocalyptic looking. This sort of somber music really helps a lot, I feel, establish the atmosphere, and the atmosphere here is really important considering the game doesn't have a lot of complex mechanics or anything, so a lot of what you're doing is just you and the atmosphere as you're exploring, so you kind of need that to really stand up. So while you're exploring around the place and finding various ruins and things, you'll come across these 4 different kinds of components that you'll need, each of a different rarity. There are the green common, the red uncommon, yellow rare, and the purple exceptional components that you won't start finding until like the later half of the game. And you'll need these mostly for progressing the main story, because as I mentioned, the game is structured in chapters, and the way that it works is each chapter gives you a new tool that opens up new exploration paths and stuff in the world, and the new tool is constructed out of these components. So the game is an open world game, but the open world is very small. I think it's exactly the size it needs to be, really, to tell the story it wants to tell. And it doesn't have a bunch of empty flat land with nothing in it that you have to traverse in sort of an annoying way. So it doesn't bother me that it's small, as long as it's enough to fit all the ruins and puzzles and things you're expected to solve. And it's a fine size. But this small size means that most of the major ruins, in fact pretty much all of the major ruins, serve like double or triple duty. You'll be back to them multiple times because they have various different pieces for you to uncover, and the first time you visit a ruin, most likely you can't actually do everything there. You'll be able to do some of it and get some of the lore and some of the materials, but there'll be some doors you can't open or some other things like that that you've got to come back for later, and that's where all these tools come into play. Most of the tools are actually fitted to your van. You can just swap between them with the D-pad, and you will get a scanner at first that helps you find components just for easier searching, so you can find all the various bits hidden around the place. You can also eventually upgrade the scanner with the ability to do things like hack certain stations, and there are even optional things you can hack that the game doesn't tell you about at all that give you some extra lore, which is pretty cool. You can also fit a giant grappling hook to it, and this has several different uses. For one, you can pull things out of the ground with it, which usually have some good loot in them. You can also use it to pull down doors and stuff, just pull doors off of things in order to access areas you couldn't before. And eventually you'll be able to upgrade this grappling hook to do things like power machines, which is the last one you'll make, so you'll only get it very late in the game. But this means that you have a good variety of stuff to do throughout the game because you're constantly getting new stuff, even up to the very end, and new ways to explore. And the best part is probably when you get the motorized pulley that lets you use zip lines. Finally, you will have seen many of them at this point in the game, but not been able to use them yet. And now you can use all the zip lines. In fact, you can even use your grappling hook as a zip line, which is pretty cool. The puzzle solving in this game is all about exploration. You are not going to find difficult physics puzzles or crazy logic puzzles or anything like that. They are all very easy, very simple. For the most part, you're going to be following wires along the ground that glow orange when they're inactive and then glow that classic teal color when they're active. And you will just be pressing buttons and flipping switches and things to make all the gates open up and unlock whatever the next area is, or lower a ladder, or open a sealed door, or something like that. So the puzzles are mostly involved around, well, the challenge of the puzzles, I guess, are mostly involved with actually getting to the locations in order to press the button or flip the switch. It's not so much about anything else as much as it's all exploration and how to get to each of these places, which is fine. I think that works all right. I'm a fan of more difficult games in general, and I like puzzle games with like mind-melting puzzles. That sort of thing is fun for me. It's fun to solve those. However, I don't mind if a game has really simple puzzles as long as it's not trying to be anything else. If a game is trying to be a complex Portal level puzzle game, but all of its puzzles are super simple to solve, then that's not as interesting because it's kind of failing at what it sets out to do. But in this case, the game isn't trying to be any sort of major brain melter. It's all very laid back and chill, so I don't mind the fact that the puzzles in this game are mostly just about walking to a place and smacking a button. And eventually you'll unlock some other areas to go through that have a little bit more puzzle solving to do, although it's still mostly about getting to specific areas and hitting switches and things. But it does its job, and it helps with the atmosphere. And I think that's sort of the main thing about this game. The thing that makes it stand out, or the thing that will determine if it's for you or not, Do you appreciate a game that is like 90% atmosphere? Because everything about this game is in service of its exploration and the atmosphere it has while you're doing that exploration. So that's sort of what everything, all of its gameplay mechanics and everything, and its music and its art style and all of that points towards the one simple fact that this is a laid-back, relaxed game about drinking in the atmosphere. This is also where the side quests come in, by the way. The side quests in this game are very much worth doing. They're not difficult, as with everything else in the game. They're quite simple, and they don't take a lot of grinding or, time wasting or anything like that. But what you're getting out of these, as well as some materials for later, you're also getting a lot of character development for all the side characters. There are a whole host of side characters in this game that you'll meet, and most of the side quests are about getting to know them better. That's the actual reward. That's what you're really getting from it. And I think the game does that part pretty well, because these are easily the most interesting aspects of the game for me, like learning about the cool frog people that are like functionally immortal and just decide to die randomly whenever they feel like it. I guess they like browsed Reddit for 20 minutes and they were like, well, that's it for me, and then they just decide to go into the desert and die. But they're linked to this giant mycelial network that goes under the surface of the planet, and you can actually get a scanner upgrade that lets you see it, which is pretty cool. And their graves are sort of nodes, nexuses of this network, and then all of their life's experiences go into the network, and the young are raised reading all of this from the mycelial network, and they sort of have all of the knowledge of their forebears and stuff when they grow up. It's a really cool idea, and you can honestly probably make a whole game about these guys, but the fact that such an interesting aspect of life is sort of a side point, some side characters in this game for you to explore at your leisure is pretty cool, and it shows that the game is good at making its side content interesting. There's also some unexpected stuff you might wander into, because this game is all about mystery. There are some mysteries that never really get solved, and I'm pretty sure that's on purpose. Like, for instance, at one point, you will find a skeleton. Just one. Just the one skeleton. You don't find any other bodies, but you find this one. And you can figure out its name by looking at its name tag, and you can talk to it and say hello, but the skeleton doesn't talk back, because it's an inert skeleton. It's dead. Except when you walk past it, it turns its head to follow you every time you walk past it. No one ever comments on this, and it's never explained. It's just something that happens. And the game has little bits like that, these like vaguely supernatural or otherwise hard to explain elements that add a little bit of extra flavor underneath the atmosphere that's already happening. It is a pretty short game to beat. It took me about 7 hours to do my complete playthrough of it, and I think that's probably a good runtime for a game that is simple, because if a game is too simplistic but too long, it can get very repetitive very easily, right? If you don't have a lot of game mechanics, but you make the player do a whole bunch of tasks, then they're only going to be able to do those tasks in a really specific way, because everything is so simple, so it's going to get really repetitive really quickly. That doesn't happen here. The game doesn't give itself enough time to get repetitive. It is introducing new gadgets to you very frequently, so you always have new places to explore, and by the time it's over, it feels like the right length. There are even friendly robots to talk to that will give you a side quest that takes you throughout all sorts of areas in the game. But by now you've probably figured out if this game is for you. I enjoyed my time with it, even as someone that usually likes much more mechanically complex and challenging games. I still enjoy something that is very laid back and relaxed occasionally, and this is definitely that, and it's got a nice atmosphere that holds it up to be interesting enough to keep you through its roughly 7-hour playtime. I enjoyed the kind of hopeful but somber ending that I got, involving some things I'm not going to spoil, but it is a worthwhile ending to get to, I feel, and that's kind of what capped it off and made me ready to recommend it. As long as you go into this game not looking for a challenge, then I think the fact that it's not like super mechanically involved will be something that you can enjoy as long as you're ready for something chill and relaxed. So I'll put the link in the description below this video to the Steam store page for Caravan SandWitch if you wish to check it out yourselves. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.